Okay, so I'm showing that it is noon and want to welcome everybody to our webinar today. I'm Michelle Atkinson. I'm an environmental horticulture agent here in Manatee County. Also on with us is Armando Oveda, who's down in Sarasota, and he is a Sea Grant agent down there. So he and I have been hosting the series for the year this year. But we're super excited and happy to have Alyssa Benson on with us, who is our urban horticulture agent here in Manatee County, and she does a lot of other fun stuff with sustainability topics. We're looking forward to her presentation today. It's being very timely with our holiday season coming up. Next week starts some of the big holiday preparations. So Alyssa, welcome. Glad to have you here, and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. This is my third time I've gotten to present for this series of workshops, and they've been really fun, and I've been really enjoying the topics. And this one was the most fun because it was something that I care about, but just kind of a neat topic to think about as we head into the holiday season. And I wanted to take some time here at the beginning of the presentation. You know, obviously, I think we all know what extension is, but just as a quick reminder, if you aren't familiar with us, we are part of the Land Grant University system. We work closely with FAMU. It's our sister university here in the state of Florida. And there's an extension office in every county. So if you didn't know who we were, look for us, find us, and we will be happy to help you with all of your questions related to how we can enhance your quality of life, because that's our main mission, is to sustain and enhance the quality of life for the people in our communities. And since we've been doing this program since the beginning of the year, I wanted to kind of take the first few slides of the presentation to remind us what sustainability means, and to kind of give a little bit of background as to, you know, why are we talking about this topic? Why is it important? So sustainability is one of those things that has a lot of definitions that vary based on the individual or based on the kind of area of expertise you're talking about. So like an economist would say sustainability is one thing, whereas, you know, a social scientist would say sustainability is something else. What we generally accept as the definition of sustainability that we kind of work off of in communication here at the University of Florida is that a sustainable system is one, like it's a system that is capable of meeting the needs of present and future generations while ensuring equity for all and continuity of natural systems. And so when we think about sustainability, we need to understand that we're not just talking about the environment. We're not just talking about the economy. We're not just talking about social systems. We're talking about an integration of all of these topics into kind of a way of living that allows us to, again, you know, provide for the needs of present and future generations, and making sure that these needs are being met in an equitable fashion, and that we are utilizing our environment and our natural resources in a sustainable and efficient manner. And I like to point out that because sustainability can vary based on the individual as far as definitions are concerned, we need to recognize where these mindsets come from, and where our approach to sustainability comes from. And I'm sure we all kind of know this in an esoteric fashion, but I wanted to put it here on the slide that we exist within nested systems. We don't exist within a linear kind of timeline. We have a lot of different types of systems that we interact with on a daily basis, right? You start with us, the individual. Our personal decisions are not made in a vacuum, right? Individual psychology, personal experience, social pressure, cultural pressure, all of these things influence our personal decisions. So you can see that the individual is nested within the broader social structure or institutions. And these are things like your, if you're a member of a local church, or if you are involved in certain kinds of organizations within your community, the local community kind of governance. These are those social structures and institutions kind of falling within that system. And then you have your broader cultural values. What type of culture do you fit into? Are there certain kinds of choices that you make on a personal level that are dependent upon that culture? Do you make decisions because of the culture in which you were raised? And I think, we can all recognize that that is the case. And then within all of these systems, we exist within our broader ecological system. The planet is constantly in flux. It's a dynamic system, and we as humans have an influence on those systems. But we also recognize that we are kind of within this bubble that is the planet, and the choices that we make down here at the individual level, while nested within this system, can have an impact, while the ecosystem can also have an impact on us. So sustainability is really looking at how do we recognize that we're existing within these broader networks of systems, and the choices that we make, the personal choices that we make, and then the broader community choices that we make are going to have an impact on these systems, and vice versa. These systems impact us as well. So I just wanted to, really remind us that our personal decisions can influence the whole system. And then as we approach Black Friday, I wanted to make this connection to consumption. Because when we talk about sustainability, we're really talking about, when we think about our personal choices related to sustainability, we're really talking about how we consume the resources that are available to us. Do we do it in a manner in which we only take what we need and we give to others? Do we utilize resources that are regenerative and can be put back into the system? And I think that, so I want to kind of break down a few of these images that are on the slide here. We're coming up on Black Friday, which is a time when people kind of go gaga for a lot of tangible objects, right? We get really caught up in this consumptive culture, right? That's a nested system that we exist within, this culture of consumerism, this idea that I must have this thing in order to provide myself with happiness. And then, there's also kind of the nefarious side of consumption, where you have people who are reliant upon kind of the manipulation of your feelings, of your sense of self-worth, and kind of encourage you to come out and you have to buy these things in order to be a better person, or and then they make money off of it, right? That's how they get their livelihood. So this culture of consumption really seems to get amped up during the holiday season for some reason. And I think, there's probably some kind of connection there between the holidays are a time when it's supposed to be really happy, and we want to be happy, we want to make people happy, and we have this feeling like things are what make people happy, so maybe we should give people more things, right? But I wanted to kind of pull this back to this idea that we're all connected by talking about the image in the middle of the slide here. And these are international trade routes. So the red lines are the pathways that ships take to move goods from one country to another. And I think that we can all recognize that the products that we consume have often traveled many more miles than we'll ever travel in our lifetime. If you think about it, from the extraction of the resource, through manufacture, through distribution, through consumption, and then ultimately ending up at the end of that product's life cycle, where all of a sudden we have something that doesn't work anymore. Thank you, planned obsolescence. And now we have to get rid of it somehow, Is it recyclable? Is it reusable? Is it fixable? You know, these are all components of a product's life cycle. And we can, you know, so when we think about the holidays and we think about the connection to consumption, I think it's really important to recognize how far our products travel and how much impact they have on the broader ecosystem, as well as on societies, right? Because the areas of the world where we have a lot of heavy manufacturing tend to have some you know, environmental justice issues related to clean water, clean air, social equity. So just kind of pulling this all together, recognizing that the holidays, right, they're not supposed to be a time of stuff. It's not supposed to be a time for us to just go out and get a really good deal on Black Friday on that new TV that we have to have because that ad told us we have to have it so we can see it look like, you know, some movie stars right in our living room. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, what are the holidays? What do we think of when we think of the holidays? And so I'd like to ask you, if you would please, to type into the chat box, what is the kind of main aspect or characteristic that you associate with the holiday season? And it can be whatever holiday you celebrate. You know, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, if you celebrate Festivus, whatever it is that you get together with your family to celebrate, what is the main characteristic of that holiday? If you would write it in the chat box, I'll give you a couple seconds.
And you might also mention that our chat is only coming to us, the panelists. Yeah. It's not going to be shared among the entire audience.
Great. Yeah, so feel free. So I've got one person who says decorations, family, food, decorations, togetherness. I know this year is going to be, it's going to be a strange year for us on the togetherness front, I think. Family, great food, hiking, chilling time. Yes, I like that too. Coming together, decorate, celebrate togetherness. Great. And I think that that's really what, we recognize that the holidays are really supposed to be all about this sense of community, this sense of being, and not just, you know, happening to be in the same room with the people that you love, but being really present and taking time to actively listen to them and to engage with them, maybe in a way that you don't get to over the course of our, you know, normal day-to-day busy lives. And I think that that's really what we try, you know, we try to have that kind of connection. And this year, I know with COVID, it's going to be really difficult for people to kind of feel that sense of connection to, you know, you're not going to be able to be necessarily in the same place with the people that you love, but there are good ways to connect virtually and in very small groups and outdoors and with masks and things like that. So, you know, be smart about how you get together, but it's great that the main characteristic that everyone shared in the chat was togetherness, a sense of connection, a sense of community, and that's absolutely, you know, so it's interesting, we all inherently know that, we all experience that and feel that, but then wrapped up in that is also that kind of drive to consume. So I think that we really need to disconnect that feeling of, you know, to give my loved ones happiness, I must give them things, right? I think we need to try to disconnect that a little bit in order to really promote sustainability in the holiday season. And so I'm going to go through some solutions for how to kind of approach the holiday season from a more sustainable framework. We're going to talk about gifts. We're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about travel, which I know this year is a weird year for travel, but there's some good information in there. And then we're going to talk about waste. Okay, what do you do with all that stuff? So for gifts, one of the first things that I always go to when I'm thinking about a sustainable gift is one that's going to be used by the people I'm giving it to. So not just like, you know, some plastic stuff to go in a stocking that will end up in the trash in 2 months' time. Something that's actually going to be used, something that's made with care, made with love. And so I really like to give homemade gifts, and I really like to give gifts that are homemade food because there's kind of a an expectation that people are gonna enjoy and consume that food that you have created. And so some examples of homemade items that you can give to people that, you know, kind of show that you've put some effort into producing a gift for them. You can buy vanilla beans, and you can put them in pretty jars with rum extract or with rum or with vodka at the beginning of the year, and it becomes vanilla extract by the end of the year. And so you can give that away as vanilla extract. You can make your own hot sauce. You put things like hickory chips or different kinds of fruit and things like that into the hot sauce to give it kind of a special flavor. And then you can, you know, put that in nice little jars and you can give that to people. I've made soap several years in a row, and this is a really fun activity if you have kids or grandkids at home. You can get really simple materials where you don't have to do, you're not actually like cooking down the fat and adding lye and things like that. You can just go ahead and buy these kind of melt and make soap kits, and that's really fun. You can add fresh herbs from your garden to it. I have used dried orange slices before to you know, make them pretty, and so that's definitely something you can do. Children's crafts, if you've got kids or grandkids, get them making paper mache snowmen and cards, and because those kinds of things people really enjoy to get. You know, they may not necessarily end up lasting for a very long time, but they're very heartfelt, and most of the time they can just go in the compost. Dish gardens are, you can put together several very small dish gardens to give out to several people using something like succulents or air plants that are easy to take care of and attractive, and, you know, make a nice little handwritten care recommendations card that you tuck into the dish garden when you give it. You can do a lot of fun things with pottery. You can get air dry clay, or you can find a local art center that has a kiln, and you can go and you can make ornaments for your family. That's something that I've done before. Candles as well. Candles are a fun activity. So just some examples of different types of homemade items that you can give to people that that they'll appreciate because you've spent time and effort and love. I am really big, especially because I have kids. I have two small kids, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. I love experience versus things, especially for my kids. And so something that I've encouraged my family to do over the last few years is that, you know, please don't get my children, you know, the newest thing off the shelf at Target. Please get them a membership to the Children's Museum, or get them a special behind the scenes visit to the aquarium or something like that. An experience versus a thing is going to be a really enjoyable gift, and you're also not encouraging kind of the consumption of a single-use item. You know, some examples. Things that you can buy for adults as well. Massages are always great. I know we can all use them right now. Things like ropes courses. You could set up a time for your small family unit to go enjoy a ropes course together, kind of challenge each other, learn about each other. I just put this on here because if anybody wants to get me a hot air balloon ride, that's on my bucket list. Scuba lessons, that's what I'm getting for my mom this year. Horseback riding excursions. You can even just like start a fund and say, you know, you can start an online fund and say, hey, I know you've been really wanting to take this dream vacation to Costa Rica. Here's $200 to get you started towards your dream vacation. So really focusing on those experiences versus those things. If you do want to purchase an item for someone, right? It's fun to wrap gifts and unwrap gifts and see people smile when they open the things that you've gotten for them. So if you're going to go for those tangible items, try to find things that are ethically sourced. Things that have like the fair trade certification, Rainforest Alliance certified, things like fair trade chocolate. You can find local coffee roasters. You can buy locally roasted coffee from them. Try to look for minority owned businesses or find ways to purchase directly from the farmer or producer. You know, there are some great online resources for, locating minority-owned businesses and going and supporting those businesses. There are some really great options for purchasing books for people where you can support local independent bookstores, even through purchasing online. There are websites like Etsy where you can buy directly from the kind of artisan who is making what you're buying. So try to, where you can, support those local businesses, support minority owned businesses, buy fair trade, and if you can, buy direct from the farmer or producer. And then the last kind of category of gifts that I have in here is philanthropic gifts. So gifts where rather than necessarily getting something for that individual, you're doing something together or in that person's name for the broader community. And so some examples of that are donating to local charitable organizations or global charitable organizations, volunteering together, going and picking something that you think that they would enjoy and spending a day volunteering together, planting trees. We need more trees all the time. Go out and plant some trees with people, packaging holiday meals, working in a food pantry. These are all types of philanthropic activities that you could gift to someone. And there's really good research behind the act of volunteering actually increases your own sense of self-worth and self-esteem and happiness. So you can think of a philanthropic gift as a gift of happiness, I think. Okay, before I move on, if anybody wants to write, remember that the Q&A is up as well as the chat. Let me look, I saw a couple of things come into the chat. Okay, just some people sharing some information. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on then to food. And we're really lucky here in Manatee County in Sarasota. We in Florida in particular, this time of year is a really good growing season for a lot of our local growers. So it's actually fairly easy to find local vegetables and fruits this time of year. I definitely encourage you to check out resources that are available online. I know that Transition Sarasota has a map of local farms. There are other available kind of maps and lists of local farms. Check out your local farmers markets. We have one downtown Bradenton on Saturdays. There's one in downtown Sarasota on Saturdays. There's one in Lakewood Ranch on Sundays. So where possible, try to source local ingredients. This is going to limit the amount of food miles associated with these big meals that you're cooking, if you're cooking big meals. I intend to cook a huge meal anyway because I love leftovers. So finding ways to kind of source that food locally. If you have somebody in the family who likes to go fishing, have local fish for your holiday meal. Wherever possible, make from scratch. Rather than buying biscuits in a tin that you pop out and put in the oven and you have to then throw that packaging away, make your biscuits from scratch. It takes just as long and they will be 100 times better. If you can, please consider replacing really meat-heavy meals with vegetarian alternatives. And this will, you know, I'm not saying that you should never eat meat, but there are significant sustainability implications for having a really meat heavy and consumptive diet. So if you can replace meat in your meals, think about ways to kind of use things like lentils and legumes and rice and vegetables. Mushrooms are a really great way to kind of increase the meatiness of a dish without actually having to put meat into it. And, you know, there are some available, you know, you can get like crumbled fake meat. They have the Beyond Burgers, all that kind of stuff is out there now. But I definitely think, you know, with the holidays, there are a lot of different options where, and even if you just reduce from, let's say, having a giant holiday ham, you instead do like a seafood bouillabaisse. And that's going to have a lower impact than that ham. Pay attention to packaging. This is something that is frustrating sometimes when I go to the grocery store. I don't know if it's frustrating for you all as well, but there will be the organic carrots wrapped in plastic next to the non-organic carrots not wrapped in plastic. And so consider your packaging when you're buying your food. Make sure that, you know, you can, where possible, limit your packaging, because that's going to limit the amount of waste that you're generating. And then I know I said I love leftovers, and I'm sure a lot of other people love leftovers too, but make sure that you use them. Food waste is a huge problem in this country. We waste almost 40% of food that is produced for human consumption. It ends up just going directly to the landfill without even being eaten. So where you can, please use your leftovers. If you're going to make a turkey, keep the bones, keep the giblets, make some turkey stock. And then you can freeze the turkey stock and you can add it to dishes for the rest of the year. Especially if you make a smoked turkey, it makes a really delicious stock. Okay, so are there any, before we move on to travel, are there any questions? Let me see. Yes, compost, absolutely. We're going to talk about compost when we talk about waste. Okay. So this year is going to be an interesting year for a lot of folks related to travel. You know, so obviously there's a big, huge coronavirus shaped caveat on this slide. Really, we should be traveling only when absolutely necessary this year, right? That's the best advice that we've gotten from the health experts is really minimize the groups of people that you're interacting with, keep your groups very small, keep them within kind of your coronavirus bubble, if you will, and travel only when absolutely necessary for this year. Now, in subsequent years or in previous years, some things to consider when you're traveling, try to use the most efficient means possible. This is going to mean if you are going to your cousin's house and your sister's coming with you, carpool, have a road trip. Make it fun. Take a couple extra days, see some things you haven't seen before, but that's going to be more efficient than hopping on a plane and flying down. There are really great express bus options that are really cheap, and you can get a bus that'll take you really far, and then you're traveling with other people, and it's a little bit more efficient. Trains are a really great method of travel in most cases. You're not going to get there as quickly as you might like, but the slow, rambling nature of trains really encourages you to kind of have conversations with the people you're traveling with. And I've found that I really enjoy train travel. And you can ride the train here in Florida. There's a stop in Tampa, and you can take it over to the East Coast. You can go down to Miami. You can go up the East Coast and hit the Amtrak system in the southeastern United States. So it's definitely going to be more efficient than flying, and it could be really fun. If you do fly, make sure that you are, trying to make your route the most efficient route possible. Depending on how much you can afford, try to make it really efficient, and consider a carbon offset when you do fly. So there are lots of programs out there. Some of them are more realistic than others. So do your research, but consider purchasing a carbon offset if you do fly. And then when you get to the location where you're staying, if you're not staying with family, look for green lodging. There are going to be different types of certifications that those hotels will have based on different practices that they employ. Things like, you know, I think most hotels do this now anyway because they realize it saves them money, but there are some water conservation kind of practices that they employ, and they'll tell you that right up front. And you can even find, like I said, there are some kind of green lodging certifications that you can look for. And then use your resources really efficiently. You know, if you are staying with family, try not to do 10 loads of laundry when you could do 4. Try to make sure that you're not running the heat or the air to a really ridiculous number when you have that many people packed into a house. So just some things to consider when you travel. Let's see, I saw the chat box flash. Yeah, that's also a great suggestion, Armando. When you do travel, rather than using all those little single-use soap products, bath products, get some reusable containers and bring your own stuff with you so that you're not consuming those kind of disposable products. That's a really good suggestion. All right, and then last but not least, waste is what I wanted to talk about. So Armando mentioned composting. Absolutely. If you don't have a compost system set up at home, please do contact your local extension office. We can help you get started on composting. Most of the materials that you would throw in the trash as far as food waste are concerned could be composted and then reused in your garden. So make sure that things like food scraps are being used in a compost system, or, you know, if you have a friend who has backyard chickens, save some of the stuff that the chickens can eat, give it to them. Wrapping paper, wreaths, trees, oh my, right? We have a lot of wrapping paper is single use. It can't be recycled because of the type of paper that it is. So I highly encourage you to seek out alternatives to kind of traditional wrapping paper. And there's an example here where you can take paper bags, you can kind of crumple them up and give them this textured look, and then you can wrap the packages and use hemp twine or yarn, and then decorate with things like little sprigs of pine. I also have used, because they're fruiting this time of year, our native Dahoon holly. You can trim some of the berries off and you can decorate your packages with our native holly. And this is great because then you can recycle this packaging, or even a lot of these a lot of the paper products that don't have a lot of inks or any kind of plasticizers in them, you can just shred them up and throw them right in your compost as well. And so I definitely encourage you to think alternatively about your wrapping. What I've done in the past as well is I actually take scrap fabric that I have, and I'll wrap my presents in scrap fabric with some nice yarn and, you know, maybe a little trinket on it. I give it, and then I just ask them to give me the scrap fabric back. So I get my fabric back. I can reuse it again the next year. For wreaths, you know, I definitely encourage folks to try to you know, make your own. It's really fun. I'm gonna shout out to Wilma, to a wreath making class we did, oh gosh, it was probably 7 years ago now, down in Sarasota County. It was a blast. But you can go to the places that sell Christmas trees, and they generally have a giant bin full of tree trimmings. And so you can gather up all that pine scrap, all of those little small branches that they're trimming off of the trees that they're selling, and you can use those materials to make wreaths. And so you can see actually these 2 pictures of wreaths that are here on the slide. I made both of those. Those are made with, so the one in the top right corner, I made with trimmings from a place that was selling trees. I decorated it with pine cones and turkey oak leaves and dried goldenrod blossoms and dried orange slices. And so that's a really great way to utilize things that you find in nature. And then the wreath that you see, the one below that, is actually muscadine grapevine from my yard, rosemary from my garden, beautyberry from my garden. And so you can find ways to kind of incorporate different aspects of your home landscape into your wreath making, and it can be a really fun activity. With your trees, if you do purchase living trees, or, you know, I should say cut trees, make sure that they're getting out and getting composted when you are finished with them, rather than just ending up in a landfill. And also, where possible, I definitely encourage people to buy a tree that is still alive, still attached to the root ball, in a pot. You can keep it alive over the holiday season, you can decorate it, and then when the holidays are done, you can go out and you can plant that tree somewhere. So remember, I'm encouraging you to plant trees, plant more trees as much as you can, and purchase a living tree so that you can go out and plant that tree when the holiday season is over. And then I have an example of a succulent dish garden here to show you that, you know, you can provide gifts to people that don't even need to be packaged, right? Don't need any packaging or any kind of wrapping on them if you just make them kind of beautiful. And for a lot of things, a lot of the food items that I make, I'll use mason jars and just wrap some lace or some ribbon around that mason jar and just give people a mason jar. You know, people in my family are probably have buckets and buckets of mason jars from the years, but they're a reusable item. A lot of times they give them back to me so I can reuse them for things in the future. So let's see, I've got something here. Okay, I'll get to that one here in a second. Anything else in the chat? Awesome. Great, some great suggestions. Sounds like you all are already thinking kind of in creative ways about how you can approach the holidays from a less consumptive, more sustainable point of view. If you need help, if you need additional information, there are a lot of resources available out there. You're going to find tons of blogs. Remember to search out that information that is vetted, that's reliable. So, you know, you'll see some of these resources that are listed here. Stanford, the Natural Resources Defense Council, which is an advocacy organization, but they have some really good resources based on research for 10 tips for hosting a wonderful and waste-free holiday. I thought that one was really nice. And then there are a couple of good blogs from the EPA on recycling and staying green for the holidays. And then I'm really happy to talk about this kind of stuff. I can't wait until next year when we can have an in-person version of this class and I can make wreaths with everyone, because it's really, really fun. I really enjoy it. And so please do email me. And that is what I have. So let me go ahead. Let's see. Do we have any questions?
There was a question, and it was talking about pots from plants. So when you are doing a new garden and you have all those plastic pots, what can you do with them? That they have tried Manatee County Recycling and garden centers who have said no, they won't take them back. I know that I will take them back to the nursery that I bought them from, and they typically will take them, but it can be a problem, I know, with diseases that can be left behind in the pots. So some nurseries that have very sensitive crops are very careful about the pots that they use.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've seen some, I've seen some upcycling ideas with some of the smaller of the plastic pots. So if you have, like, say 3-inch ones, you can actually make a wreath with them. But eventually, because it's plastic, they are going to degrade if you have them outside because of UV damage. So if you can find a nursery that will take them back, that's really the best option, I think, because then they'll get reused for their purpose.
Right. And it's not going to be a garden center, because a garden center is just selling plants that were provided from a nursery. You have to actually find the growers, and the growers will take them.
And there was a question about the resources. I'm going to go ahead and send those resources right now in the chat. So there's the resources that were on my last slide. And if you want to email me, here is my email address. And I'm going to take this opportunity to promote a class that's going to be offered again next year, the Sustainable Floridians program. If you are interested in topics related to sustainability, we're going to be modifying that program and making it available to folks starting in April of next year. There will be a topic every month, and we'll be offering it both as a kind of self-directed online module, as well as having in-person or virtual meetings, depending on where we're at. Just plug in that a little bit. Look for more information on that if you're interested in sustainability.
So one of our participants says that MRT and Venice will take back pots. So I'm assuming that's a garden center down in the Venice area. Great, thank you for that.
Rondo had a suggestion as well. You can buy cards from your favorite NGO, non-governmental organization. That's a good way to help, absolutely. I know Audubon has some really lovely cards, and I've gotten those in the past. That's fun. That's fun. Okay. I was just looking through the chat box here. Armando sharing that local seafood markets are a really good place to find gifts and great food products. I would agree with that. Fishing is one of those activities that we always do in the holidays because we have the time. It's nice to get out with the family and go fishing.
So there's a question about how do you track where things are coming from?
So some products are now requiring a life cycle analysis or a life cycle assessment, but it depends on the company. So one of the things that you can do is you can look at the packaging and it will tell you, usually it'll say like manufactured in, and it'll tell you the country of origin there. And that's not always going to tell you the whole story though. So you have to think about from the resource extraction beginning. So if an item is made out of plastic, let's say, that plastic was created, manufactured from oil that was pulled out of the ground, oil that couldn't be used for other purposes such as, creating gasoline, things like that, that are more useful. Although the plastics industry is pretty profitable right now. So a lot of oil is going to plastics production right now. So, kind of start there. And then a lot of items, look for places where a lot of things are manufactured. And depending on the type of product, it may be more likely that it was manufactured in China or India or Mexico. But again, look at the package, look at where it says it was manufactured. And then you can also do a little bit of digging on the company itself and find out a little bit about their practices. Companies that kind of purport themselves as being green or eco-friendly generally will have a life cycle assessment of their products available if you ask them.
Something that I learned later in life is that saying reduce, reuse, and recycle is in order, that you should look for packaging, to reduce your waste, the stream of waste that you're supplying into the system. So looking for that less packaging. Sometimes you open one plastic wrapper only to open another plastic wrapper to open a cardboard box to get to the thing that you want. So looking for companies that are looking for ways to reduce that is a really good thing.
Yep, absolutely. There's some really, yeah, go ahead, Armando.
Sorry, I was going to add 2 R's to that, reuse. Also, if you can refuse, sometimes, especially during these times, a lot of businesses want to give you things away that you might not need and just grab it because they give it to you. So just think about that if you really need those products. And also repair. That's something that's become very popular. If you have an old bike, you know, you can repair it. You can go to a community group. They might repair it to give it to somebody else. So that's another good way to avoid waste and consumption.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I was just going to say the same thing.
Okay, well, as we wrap up here, I do want to mention that December 17th, we have another one of our Earth Day 50, because we are celebrating 50 years of Earth Day with the sustainability series. And so we will have another one on December 17th. They're again at the same time at noon. We try to accommodate kind of a lunch and learn situation. The topic for that webinar is going to be backyards for the birds. So we look forward to hearing how we can improve our bird action in our own backyard.
Thank you, everybody. It was a very engaging conversation. Thanks for participating in the chat.